Welcome to the Assistant Lab podcast, hosted by Victoria Ratton and Anel Martin.
This podcast is dedicated to the executive assistant profession, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
We've created this podcast for the outliers, the linchpins, the assistants who are serious about their careers. This is a podcast for those who are preparing for the future today.
This is a space for no-nonsense content, benchmarking and tracking industry and world trends, as well as interesting interviews with exceptionally inspirational people. The goal here is to stimulate new ways of thinking and being in this profession.
So, on with the show.
Welcome to this next episode of the Assistant Lab. This week's super inspiring, amazing, fabulous guest is Sarah Howson. Sarah is the founder of the Strategic PA Network and also co-founder of the Strategic PA Recruitment company. We have an amazing chat with Sarah. I didn't know much about Sarah's early years, to be fair, and I was really surprised. It's a really, really fascinating story. And we talk about obviously when she came out of the education system, how she made those career choices, what, you know, kind of what happened in life and kind of parallel leading up to setting up the network. I think her positive outlook on life, the people who have influenced her, setting up awards and why they're important, and also talking about, you know, her new recruitment firm. Well, it was new, it had just launched just as the world was going into lockdown. But we do talk about the fact there is a real need for that more personalised service, especially for assistants. So we get right into the nitty gritty of what Sarah and her business partner are trying to achieve there. We also touch on some of Sarah's personal life. She is a mum of two, married, and just as a kind of potential warning, we do talk a little bit about infertility, and because it's something that Sarah's really passionate about and has been talking openly about on LinkedIn. So if that is a bit of a trigger for you, you may want to switch off at that point. But she is an amazing woman, hugely inspired. As Anel and I always say, we don't know how these mums do it, really don't. Apparently there's a strategy to it, which is just to wing it. But it feels like there's so much more than that. You're really going to enjoy this one. So go and grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, or if it's in the evening, maybe a glass of wine. Sit back and be inspired. Well, welcome and good morning, Sarah. And we've finally got you on the Assistant Lab.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining us, because I know this is going to be a really, really thrilling interview. So I think we'll just get stuck right in, because we've got so much to kind of ask you and talk through. Now, I know you've listened to some previous episodes, and we like to go back to, especially when we're talking to Brits, because things start to move in our lives around the age of 16, and we're supposed to make all these big decisions about becoming an astronaut or police officer, you know, basically say what's going to happen for the rest of our lives. So what was happening to 16-year-old Sarah? Did you go to college?
Oh gosh, so I grew up in Florida. So age 3 to 13, I had 10 years in Fort Lauderdale. My mum and dad got the opportunity to run a hotel over there, and this was, I guess, in the 80s, wasn't it? So it was spring break, central. So I guess I had that American childhood, came back at the age of 13, very sheltered life, went to a church school and kind of, you know, very, very sheltered over there, playing with Barbies at the age of 13. So coming back and heading into a secondary school was a real baptism of fire for me, massively. But no, found a good friendship group, and went to sixth form. I did GNVQ Advanced Business, so it was a good school, good local school. Got to take part in, oh gosh, lots of different things. We did Young Enterprise, which I've been speaking to the CEO of Young Enterprise to kind of get back involved in that. So was the managing director of our little Young Enterprise company, Sapphire, which I loved, and obviously a good insight at that age, I think, into business and the different functions of business. And then went off to, I was working in an IT department for a mystery shopping company, which I think as an EA doing a bit of mystery shopping, early on you've got that 360 vision on so many different aspects of anything and everything. But then went to Oxford Brookes Uni. I didn't live there. I drove, so I commuted to uni, and did a business and IT management degree, which I loved. Not too sure. I you know, when I think back now, we did like corporate strategy and lots of things, and you kind of think having the experience to apply that would have perhaps been useful. But no, really enjoyed it, and worked all throughout in an IT department, and did a lot of training and development. The company created a new system, so I think IT skills for EAs. You know, I used to be help desk ultimately, so loved that. And then got my first role as an EA. Didn't even understand what the acronym was. I went for a marketing role with the semiconductor company, so it's a startup, and he said to me, you can, you know, be my marketing assistant 90% and 10% EA. And I was like, what? I don't even know what that means. You're gonna be my executive assistant. And I think like a month after kind of figuring out the role, he pulled me back in his office and said, you know, you're no longer my marketing assistant, you're going to be my full-time EA. So it was a baptism of fire, but one where I just loved it, and it played to all my strengths. And you know, he as a mentor and a CEO was phenomenal, and you know, very lucky to work with someone like him and the team he had around him. And you know, he threw me in the deep end pretty much every day, so you kind of live and learn the hard way. But yeah, no, enjoyed that, and you know, my career kind of progressed from then.
Did you, I have to ask this though, did you come back to the UK with American accent? I had to ask.
No, so it was really interesting, and I think this like adaptability and flexibility. So when at school in America, I was American and you know, had the twang, and when I'd get home with mum and dad, I'd be, you know, very typically British. So you kind of, you know, did what you needed to do to fit in. And when I came back, no, you know, British through and through. But I slide into it. If I speak to someone who's American, or I go back on holiday, you kind of like, hey, any water, you know, like you just go back into it. So it's kind of fight or flight, you know, you do what you do to fit in where you need to. So yeah.
Fascinating. That I just I didn't know that about you actually, so that's really great.
Yeah, beach, that's what I love. The ocean, love the beach, you know, love the beach, water, and you know, so now like it just, yeah, just lucky, very lucky, loved it.
Well, I won't be down the beach now till September because we're dealing with lots of tourists down here in Dorset, so and we kind of stay away. You have to, otherwise you just end up in trying to get out of a National Trust car park for 4 hours, and I'm not up for that. my queuing days. It is lovely, but you kind of like, the locals know this time of year is for the tourists, and because Dorset is a tourist county, this is when they make their money. So yeah, we kind of just sit back and
lay low.
Lay low, and then when they're all gone in the first week of September, it's like, quick, get down there.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's so interesting that you mentioned the accents. A lot of South Africans go, you know, on scholarships to American universities, and a lot of them are very Afrikaans. So they learn to speak English for the first time properly in America, and they all come back with the accents, and it takes them years to shake. So, but I think it's because you learn English for the first time with that accent. So, but yeah, it's very interesting. I think culturally, you know, having made that transition must have been, you know, at that very tender age, because I mean, your formative years were in the US. That must have been quite an adjustment.
Yes, I think definitely. I mean, one thing I think Americans do really well is build confidence. So, you know, and the first CEO I worked for said, you know, something I spotted in you was your confidence, and that kind of that I guess ability to stand tall. But I don't think I knew I had it in me, if that makes sense. And certainly the transition back was hard. So you make all your your friendships as well. But you know, I was lucky that you I was definitely one of the more academic ones at school, kind of like, did all my work. I was definitely not one of the cool girls at all. Definitely one of like to get, one of the other ones. So yeah, I kind of stumbled through it. Definitely, but it wasn't easy. Growing up's not easy, is it? Especially,
No.
now with what youngsters have to face. It's hard.
Yeah.
So, just coming back to, you've now talked about your career journey, and I know that you're in the PA recruiting space specifically. There are tons of recruiters out there. What are you doing differently? What would you say is your edge when it comes to this niche of recruitment?
So I've done the role, and now I've been there. I've got the t-shirt. I understand the challenges. I know what questions I need to ask, and trust me, I think there's still an education piece to kind of have around the profession, the executive assistant profession. And there's nothing more I love than getting in front of a CEO and kind of educating them as to the capabilities of what a good, stellar, strong EA can do. And it's asking the right questions. It's what are their strengths? What do they need help with? Some are really strong, some have got great EQ, some are not, and some are really honest with us and say, I'm terrible at the people person stuff. I need someone who's strong on that. So it's really understanding, but also, there's good days and bad days as a CEO. It's what does it look like for you on a bad day? What kind of support do you need? Is it someone who's proactive? Do you want someone who's going to be kind of, dragging things out of you? It's understanding their leadership style, the rest of the SLT as well. Who have they got in place? What do they need? So yeah, and for a CEO to give up kind of an hour and a half to really share their issues, problems, plans for the business, what are the growth plans, what is it going to look like, over the next couple of years. That to me is really key and really important. And also, I haven't got a typical recruitment background, and I think that also
that's no bad thing.
I was about to say the same thing.
and yeah, the business we created, and my business partner Marianne, we've got different strengths. It's not a numbers game. There's no targets. I'm not trying to get something over the line by the end of the month. I genuinely want an EA to love what they do. I've been blessed throughout my career, and I've literally loved, lived and breathed every single role. And when we get a brief from a client now, I pretty much am putting my hand up sometimes saying, actually, I'll do this role. Marianne's looking at me like, no, you are not, you're not jumping ship. But that's when it's a good role and a good position, and someone who's respecting our profession, understands the value. They're the people we work with. And, we've turned business away because you just don't feel that with some individuals.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, well, it's well charted that I spent a good chunk of my career in recruitment, but I don't beat around the bush. I've been very open about it. I've been brutalized by recruiters, which I have talked openly about, telling me to change my appearance, change my class, change my accent. Even if I went back out on the market tomorrow with some London recruiters, they'd still find something that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important to have, really authentic recruiters now, because people are just tired of the sales spill, the ghosting, the put downs. It's hard. It's such a personalised thing looking for a job. It's your livelihood. It's your, your career,
emotional,
your bills. You've got to have that kind of connecting of the dots, I think, to be really good at that. And I kind of increasingly hear from assistants, they just want that personalised service. They're really fed up with the conveyor belt stuff. And
oh gosh, and everyone's career journey has been so different for different reasons as well. When you look at a CV, there's a reason why someone's been in an organisation for 1 year and then moved to another for a certain number of years. What looks like on paper, I think having a conversation with someone to understand what their experience is so important, because everyone's got such a unique journey. And being a C-suite EA in a small startup is completely different to being a C-suite EA in a PLC. You know, I made that shift and cried for about 2 months when I did, you know, because it's not easy, and you know, an international business is completely different to a small boutique local organization, and unless you understand that and you can kind of articulate and also bring out what people's strengths are, and that I find sometimes, you know, really challenging, because I'm like, you've been amazing, you've done some great things, you know, recognize that. So I guess it's that approach and trying to kind of understand what everyone's experience is really important, because you need to match that to the organization. What are their plans? What are their career aspirations?
Absolutely.
100%.
And you know, Sarah,
Yes,
I think,
do it.
sorry, I always say to people, you know, when executives contact me and say, do you know somebody good for the role? I always say to them, you know, this is like matchmaking. If you, it honestly is, you spend more time awake with your executive than you do with your significant other most of the time. So this really is, you will be with them in times of extreme stress. You need to understand their communication, their conflict style, all that kind of stuff. So I do think, and I want to get your opinion, that a lot of this is based on, do we click?
Yes.
Now, I've got a theory. We've got to be complete opposites, so North and South Pole, or we have to be very similar. So that's my sliding scale when I'm trying to match people. Are there certain things that you've figured out in this journey?
Definitely. And I think, you know, understanding the connection is everything. And you know this, you know, I've had a connection with all the CEOs I've worked with, and you're there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I think no one understands this role than another EA themselves. And, you know, you get your friends, your partners, you know, why are you there till 11 o'clock at night? Who gets this? But it's having that, that drive and energy and that passion for what you do that's really important. So number one, that's like got to be there, but it's connection, and it's asking all those questions that are really hard, you know. And when I do joke with the CEOs we work with and say, like, I'm going to grill you for an hour and I'm really going to get to the bottom of what you you know, what you really need, because there's someone for everyone. You know, absolutely, but it's working out, you know, having the skills to do the job and having the experience is one thing, but you know, it's probably 80% connection, and they're not going to get that until they meet face to face, until they spend that time together. And gut feel, I mean, we all know, you know, when you click with someone, you know, you can spend, you know, till 3 a.m. working on board papers if you need to, together in a room, you know, after no sleep. It's kind of understanding that relationship, and I think that's really important.
Now, am I right in thinking you set up this recruitment firm not long before COVID kicked off?
We launched on, I think it was the 8th of February 2020 at Clifton House. So Clifton is like one of the hotels I love, around the corner from us, and we had 12 CEOs around a table, and it was interesting, because I used to book Clifton for my CEO, and there I was launching the business with Marianne at Clifton, so it kind of felt like full circle. And then 3 weeks later, we went into lockdown. So we've had a pandemic, what else? We had an energy crisis, recession, war. So I feel like grit, resilience, tenacity are kind of all, you know, all toolbox traits that we've had to just deal with. And you know, I'm hoping for our, you know, that moment where we can grow the business. I'd love to kind of have a small team. Never want to be high street, never want to be, you know, large. It's the personal touch. I think that consultative approach that makes us different. But it'd be nice to just have a really nice normal year. You know, everybody.
I get that. I preach that. We've never had that since we opened EPAA, because we dealt with Brexit within months of openings. And I remember Katie, our chair, who's just stepped down, she said, one of the things she said to me a couple of months ago was like, Vic, I really want to see EPAA just being a normal economy, like, because we haven't had it. And I mean, in the one, I mean, you touched upon it, Sarah, in the one breath, you're kind of like, well, we've been through Brexit, political stalemate, economy going to fall off a cliff, and it's starting to get back on track again. Then we're in a pandemic, and And so she said, in all fairness, you've probably been through everything a business could conceivably go through in your startup years. So we're literally like holding on. Come on. And so, because I want to see what it's like. Yeah. I think of most small and medium-sized businesses in the UK, the one thing you ask them, probably the same for SA as well, Anel, like, I want to grow my team and business, but I can't at the moment.
No,
I just can't do it.
No, the vision's there and the passion's there.
Yeah.
And I think the scope's there. It's just, you know, and maybe it's a blessing, you know, you've got to look at these things positively. You know, we've worked, you know, a lot of our business, probably like 80-90% is referral and word of mouth. And, you know, for that, I'm truly grateful. And I definitely, you know, the PA network that I run as well, you know, that helps. And knowing amazing, great people who are kind of your cheerleaders, your lighthouses, you know, they're supporting you. Like, thank goodness for those who I'm surrounded with. That's 100%.
That's gorgeous.
Grateful.
Absolutely. And I do think that, you know, you often have, I think when you look at that silver lining, the stress testing, at least we know we've survived probably the worst bundle that you could put together, like a once in a lifetime catastrophe. If we can make it through this, I'm sure we can make it through whatever comes next. So I think that's the plus. Sarah, tell us a little bit about the Strategic PA Awards. You just alluded to the PA Forum, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, the network I love, it's my passion. I have made amazing friendships from it, and you know, it's something that happened on maternity leave, when networking all those years ago, Vic, was not even a thing. It was the big four and that was it. So to kind of bring together that community, which has grown organically over the years, is amazing. And we've got our third awards this year in October, and it's spotlighting the profession. It's shining a light on those who are kind of in the shadows. And you know, it's a siloed role. You're often kind of on your own in organizations. And I remember the first CEO I worked for, he said, you know, it's such a fine line being an EA, because you know, you can't really have friendships in an organization. Well, I you know, never could, not as openly as you would outside of your organization. So to be able to see this community come together and grow in confidence, and you know, one of our members came in, I mean, the topic one day was presentation skills, and we were walking to the front of the room announcing our CEO and sitting down and kind of, you know, introducing ourselves, and she was like, I don't want to do anything like that, I'm so scared, and you know, I'm really nervous, I don't want to be involved. And you're like, okay, you know, it's fine. You know, now when she walks in the room, she's flouncing around, introducing people to other people and up speaking on a panel, and the growth that she's had. And I remember the email that she sent. So it's kind of giving people a platform and an opportunity to shine and be thanked publicly, because sometimes you're not, you know, we all know that this role sometimes is, you know, one of those positions that just gets forgotten about on the organisation chart. Even though it's the best position on the organisation chart, in my opinion.
Quite. So where are you at with is the nominations now closed, or is it still open?
No, it's still open. We're still kind of pushing nominations, and you know, at the different events, and when we're speaking to HR directors. I think it's got to be, you know, when you see the nominations come through, some of them are really humbling, and you know, there's the reasons, and it's going more than above and beyond. It's kind of spotlighting those who really deserve it as well. So you know, it's speaking to the CEOs, and most people are completely unaware that the awards even take place. So I like the education piece again. It's kind of making sure that we get those nominations in and beat the drum. You know, that's part of what I love doing as well.
Well, we'll definitely hyperlink that in the show notes as well. So just very quickly, so our listeners who are in the UK and might be able to come along on the evening, when are they taking place and where?
They are on October the 19th at the Hilton in Reading, a lovely hotel. Natalie's looking after us, and we've got great evening and some training as well. We've kind of gone down the road of, you know, learning and development is at the heart of what we do. So we've got, I think, 3 speakers weaved into the evening. just sharing different topics. But it's the L&D part, like it's not, that's key and important to us, definitely.
Lovely. Sorry, I interrupted you there, Anel.
No, I wanted to say, you were talking about the learning and development. I think we're all quite passionate about it, and how some events, they tend to be a little bit of gimmicky, candy floss stuff out there. So, I just wanted to come back to, it doesn't really show us in the best light. That's my personal opinion. Do you agree that sometimes what we're putting out into the open, out into public, doesn't serve the profession? When we're trying to educate and get people to understand what we really do you think that that's serving us?
Yes, I mean, hot topic as well. And for us, it's interesting because we get offered, some of the hospitality, they want to do gin tasting or champagne tasting, and do you want this after? And actually, no, we don't. We're not there for that. Well, certainly we're not there for that purpose. It's not a jolly. I always say, what gets me out on a Thursday night? I don't see my friends enough. I don't see my family. When I go to an event, there has to be a purpose, and for me, L&D has to kind of feature. It has to be a topic that interests me, has to be a purpose of learning. It's a brilliant venue as well that you get to see. I remember getting offered lunches out all the time as an EA, and you never have time to go and swan. I would have been fired by my CEO if I said I'm off for lunch now to look around venues. So it's got to be win-win for everybody, and obviously the group of people as well, and the EAs that come along to the events, they're high performers. They're there to learn, they're there to network, they understand the benefits of networking and building up your black book of kind of contacts, and that's definitely at the heart of what we do. And I think words are really powerful, pictures, images are really powerful, and it's just being mindful, as a profession, mindful of that.
I always go back to what Anel said in a previous podcast when we've talked about this, and referencing the Pilots Association. And when we see them painting their nails at a professional event, then it's been fun. I've been tracking the Pilots Association, and I'll just see.
Thank you. Keep me posted.
My Twitter feed. Yeah.
When they start painting their nails, please let me know.
Yeah, there's been nothing like that today.
No.
I'm gutted.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because we definitely did do a little bit of it like 20 years ago, but it was never like the main thing. I think back then it's like you were saying, Sarah, it's that same ethos. So I don't have much time, I'm really busy, I've got a family, I'm caring for parents, so if I'm going to come out, it's got to be good, and I've got to get boom boom boom. And I think we kind of, maybe that all fell a little bit by the wayside after the 2008 recession, when people were just, they'd worked really hard, they'd done their L&D, they were discarded from their jobs. Maybe it was something wrapped around then, but now we've come out of the pandemic, like people are so aware of their own time now.
Absolutely.
So,
and
more than I've ever seen it.
Yeah, no, and same with me. I'm selective with the events we put on, and it's my time as well as those who are kind of coming along. So it's got to be value there, and that's really important, definitely.
Well, I'm going to interject with a very quick question. How the hell are you managing all this? Because it's easy, obviously, for Anel and I. We've got cats, dogs, husbands. But we don't have children, and we've always been upfront about that, and we're still like in awe of people like you. So we're like, how the hell do they feed these people? Like, I can barely feed myself. Like, what? How do you do it all?
Oh my god. So can I just say, I often get calls from the school, and I look at my phone thinking, oh no, what have I forgotten now? And it's, hi, you haven't got your lunch for your son organised. So we're often, it looks super glamorous from the outside. We're at lovely hotels, but we're running down the high street with a protein pot and a sandwich in our mouth, and kind of like getting to the next place. So it's, I think there's this glamorous of, I've got a husband as well, so it's keeping everyone happy. But I think, I don't know, just driven, and you know this, if it's your own business, you've got that energy, you want it to succeed, you're that kind of person. I think it's in you, you know, to be an EA, you've got to have that fire in your belly or that passion to make things happen and get things done. I'm not, you know, some days I'm Mary Poppins and I rock it, other days I don't know where my children, you know, you just kind of think, what have I got to do today? So but it's that portrayal and being honest, I think, as well. You know, I see other mums on the school run, they're like, oh my God, I've been shouting at my kids all morning. I'm like, do you know what, love, I have been too. But that's real life. They're here, they're safe, they're alive. But you know, you've got to take the wins. And I think it's really taking the wins when you can.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally stepped over motherhood, and I'm facing being a grandmother for a second time, and my head's just fried with that. So yeah, I mean, as ever, we're always really super in awe of people like you, Sarah, that are raising the future generations and still doing what you're doing, and we always like to acknowledge that. And I always like to sort of reflect when I have a stressful tiz later and something's on a meltdown with the business or Rossi or my husband, and then okay, yeah, but I can manage this. Oh, people are managing more than this than me, and it's kind of like, so yeah, it's just
no, I'm the kind of person who has to set reminders to remember to eat and drink water. I would not be able to manage a school run. You know, I need to set reminders to human. So, you know, for me, I think that would have been a huge challenge. So yes, absolutely. I always say, I've got so much respect, you know, even as a corporate EA, you know, at that point in my life, I realized, I looked around and it was all women who were slightly older and not in committed relationships. And I kind of looked around at the company and I thought, if you're doing 13 hours a day, plus managing a family and a home, I can understand why this niche is looking different to my demographic. So it isn't easy. And I always say, what you made such a beautiful point, being honest and saying, I don't always have it together. Some days it is an absolute tip fire, but I'm okay. I'll get through this. Tomorrow will be another day.
No, and I, you know, I'm an older mom as well. You know, I waited a while to have my boys, and I openly, you know, they're both IVF babies, and you know, I think, you know, having to deal with infertility or, you know, IVF in the workplace is not often talked about. So I openly, you know, I'm happy to have that conversation with anybody because it's navigating a really rough time, and I think, you know, I appreciate those two. They're Edward and Will, and they are, you know, they make me smile every day, and they are hilarious, and they drive me. That's what, you know, drives me ultimately to kind of do what I do. It's showing them, you know, that I'm working and earning pennies for the fun fair. That's how I kind of, you know, say it. And they're like, does that mean we can go on the Crazy Frog? I'm like, go on a Crazy Frog 4 times, you know. But they understand that mummy works and does interviews and kind of I think that's really important, to be a good role model for the children.
Oh, I love seeing your pictures on Facebook and the boys and husband and stuff. It's just, well, it's real life, isn't it? And
yeah, awesome.
You've had a journey to get those boys, and yeah, probably like you said, it's just such a big driver, and I think it's great that you talk about infertility as well, because I know we briefly mentioned it before we came on, and obviously we interviewed Pregnant and Screwed not that long ago, and they've done the research around the discrimination and not such pleasant behaviour from employers towards women going through fertility treatment and whilst they're at work. And I was sad to kind of read all that. So it's clear we need to start talking more about this, and to know those women, to know they're not on their own going through that journey and trying to juggle work and
and injections, you know, appointments, and, you know, what's the policy, what you know, EAs have a responsibility, I think, from that point of view, to raise it with HR, and, you know, what's going on in an organization, are you supporting that workforce, you know, and kind of offering an olive branch. There's a lot of people hide it and don't, you know, it's a weird and horrible and kind of, you know, bleak time when you're trying to get pregnant, let alone having to do the journey. And, you know, in my mind, it was a few injections, you know, you just realize how kind of naive you are to what actually goes on. But every step is a hurdle, and every step it can be taken away from you. So yeah, it's definitely a sensitive and subject close to my heart.
Yeah. And well, it just shows how much resilience you've got to have gone through those journeys as well. So hats off to you, you know. Because obviously I took the decision not to after finding out about my own fertility. Well, I've just kind of left it as what will be, and I've touched lightly upon it in the PA industry before, but I've seen my colleagues and my family go through it, and I can see how hard, and you do need a lot of resilience to come through a journey like that. So,
and a good support network, you know, I think like having those people around you that support you, love you, and you know, really kind of champion you and are there on the sidelines are just really key as well. And you know, I'm blessed. I've got, you know, lovely friends, got the PA network as well, and you know, great partner and family. I'm lucky. I am so lucky. I cannot even tell you.
oh, that's so lovely to hear, isn't it? Just
Gorgeous.
in a mad world, just to have somebody, saying that.
You know, I was actually talking with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about success circles, and this ties in so beautifully with what you're saying. Make sure that the circle around you is filled with people who are there for your highest good, people who support you, and then support them in turn, bring people in that you can lift up. And it really sounds to me like with the PA network, with your family support, with your friends, you've definitely got a success circle around you. So congratulations on that. That's really amazing.
Thank you. And I think, you know, there's that Maya Angelou quote that we always, you know, our business revolves around it. You know, it's not how you make people feel, not how make people, oh God, I can't even remember it now. I've got it etched in my brain and it's gone, but you know, it's how you make people feel and how people make you feel as well. And it's so, you know, empathy, having that EQ to kind of see really what's going on behind the scenes is so important. And a skill that EAs I think have in space.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So we'd always like to finish every podcast, regardless of who we're interviewing, asking two things. Like, looking back now, is there anything you wish you'd done differently, any kind of lessons learned? And then the second part of that is who's kind of inspired you, whether that's from a personal or professional perspective?
Gosh, I think like networking. If I could tell my 20-year-old self to kind of you know, get out there and kind of learn from other people and really ask those questions and immerse yourself in different groups, you know, doors open left, right and center. And you know, I'm sat here talking to you because of networking. And I, you know, after I had my first child, I got my next position because of the network and because of what I was doing, and you know, managed to then shift my pattern to a 4-day week, worked locally. You know, after my second baby, I wanted to set up the recruitment company, and that's because I'd met so many people along the way who helped and supported and kind of believed in me. So I think, you know, networking at a young age is so important, and building those connections and those relationships. And you know, a lot of my advice to EAs, you know, when we're talking about them getting a new role, or you know, perhaps they weren't successful in one position, is use your network and really kind of reach out to those you've worked with previously. Let them know, you know, if people don't know you're looking for an opportunity, how can they help you? And you know, you genuinely want to help others and connect dots for other people, and that, you know, there's nothing better than seeing two people connect that you put together and you know, something amazing come out of it, because that's nice, you know, that's special, and that's you just see it and you know intrinsically that it will work for whatever reason. So yeah, networking I think definitely has to be key.
Love that. And who's inspired you? Are there any books you've read that have like just, I mean, I'm a massive bookworm. Well, I used to be prior to the pandemic, but I had to make myself how to read again.
I tell you who inspired. So Nikki, my mum's cousin, she used to come over and nanny for us when we were in the States, and she has got an energy about her that just lights up a room. She's a social worker, and she's kind of worked her way up in the industry, and you know, her role is hard, but she went to university, and you know, no one in my family had been to university before, so you know, without her I probably wouldn't have even thought about, you know, that's an opportunity for me. Another lady, Debbie, who I worked with in the first organization, I think, you know, there's certain people along the way that just spread her wings, took me in and showed me the ropes. And I remember the first day I started, and they were like, right, book your ticket to Las Vegas, we've got a convention center, you know, a show that we're going to, you're going to be in charge of this, that and the other. And I was just eyes wide open, like, oh my goodness. And she, her whole way, you know, I love her to bits, and thank goodness she was there at that right time, because, you know, a mentor, encourager, just everything you want in someone was there.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah, absolutely love it. Thank you so much for being with us today. And
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, these conversations are reaching people that are not always extroverts out there on LinkedIn. You know, we get many messages from assistants like, we're listening in, and it's been so motivating, but I don't want to sit on LinkedIn all day, I don't want big profile, but this is really helping me in my career. And it is really, really inspiring. And there's no doubt to me, you know, I've been an industry figure for a long time now, hiding the grey hair. It's the industry that's given me the grey hair. You've got the trendy grey hair. I might do that soon, but you are. Yeah, I'm with Davina McCall, still, like, you know, dying. But there's no doubt about it, you've been a massively inspirational figure since you've come on to our scene. You're doing great work. And I think what I love about you, which sometimes we miss in society now with all these sort of Instagram influencers, you know, the whole celebrity type thing, that is that lack of authenticity. And that's why when you get to work with people who are 100% authentic, it gives you goosebumps, which I've got now. So
it's nerve-wracking. I think, like, people think it comes easy, and they're like, oh, you love speaking in front of people. And like, if you know how nervous I get before an event, or before, you know, standing on a stage, it does not come naturally at all. And it's like big deep breaths, and like, okay, you've got this. So it's you know, it's not easy at all. And how you do it, you know, like both of you and trainers, you know, I am in awe of others, you know, it's amazing.
Sarah, I just need to help you there. We also all still feel it. Now, I trained as an actor, and one of the things they told us, and I don't know how true the stat is, but they say that moment before you go on stage, the amount of adrenaline that goes through your body is the equivalent of being in a car accident. We all feel it. Wow. It is. So every single person. And somebody told me early on, and I think it was Susie, Vic, who said to me, the second I don't get nervous about talking to people on stage is the second I'll stop, because I really care about this. This is why I'm feeling nervous. So I've always carried that with me and thought that was a beautiful piece of advice, just acknowledging the butterflies are there, the nerves are there, but it's because I genuinely care about these people. I want to give them something of value. So, but please don't be fooled. The rest of us are feeling it too.
Yeah, and I think that people assume you come out the womb like instantly confident. When I do public speeches now, and they're like, well, it's easy for you, Vic, you know, you can just get up there and do it. And I'm like, this is
if you only knew.
Craft, yeah, mindset work, and the amount of stages where I've had to go and throw up before I've actually got on stage to speak to you. And I remember bringing you over for your first international gig, Anel, which is 10 years ago.
And I was terrified.
This September.
I was terrified.
Yeah, and I remember the conversations we were having before and after, and still now, but they do think you are born this way. And so it's really important to hit home. And I think it's inspiring for other assistants to know, yes, I did vomit off stage before I came up.
Yes, I've read my notes 100 times and like, oh.
And still flaked. No, I must tell you, I think it's important that we're real about this, because like you mentioned, people are sometimes nervous about networking, introducing themselves, knowing that, you know, people who actually do this for a living still get nervous. But it's the trick of pushing through that anxiety.
Yeah,
No.
definitely.
No.
Well, thank you so much. And I mean, obviously, I'll probably get to see you soon. I know we're going to try and sort that out. And we must, when we're in Anel's next in the UK, we've got to make it happen.
Oh, please.
It'd be
And
amazing.
Get to
yeah,
meet
no,
face to
absolutely.
face. But thank you very much for being with us. And
Thank you.
yeah, I look forward to seeing your future work for the profession as well. Thank
Oh,
you.
bless your hearts. No, thank you. Appreciate it. And
Thanks
yeah,
for-
have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Assistant Lab. If you enjoyed this content, you know what you need to do. Feel free to share it and help us grow our subscriber base.
Join us again next time. And until then, keep experimenting, innovating, and improving your skill sets.